know it's not good to apologize, but, beginning of something, but, I'm a full-time caregiver with my wife. She has dementia. And this was not a good night last night, not a good day today. I usually don't leave her this long. So I feel like I'm not fully capable of doing what I want to be able to do and what I've been asked to do. So please pray and be patient with me. I'll do the best I can. Task of a pastor. Now again, the three dimensions of the pastoral role, pastoral leadership, the three dimensions are preaching, teaching, pastoral care, and administration. And then the task of pastoral care is what I've listed here, and I've got two more that I failed to put down that I've got listed. So I don't know how far we'll get. Let's see, time frame, we are to go from 10 to 10:45. Maybe we'll get through with these. Stay spiritually healthy. How hurtful it is to have fellow ministers fall. And goodness, folks who've done a great job, things happening, they're no longer qualified or not immediately qualified. We do have restoration process. Hopefully they can be restored. And some are and some refuse to go through it. But stay spiritually healthy. How do you do that? How do you stay spiritually healthy? What do you do to stay spiritually healthy?
Well, you gotta be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
What does that mean, John? Unpack it a little bit.
Oh, I mean, you have to look at yourself in the mirror of God's word and see where you stand. And, you know, as men of God, we all face situations and various things that come at us all the time, pressures and even temptations come our way.
Yeah.
Just be honest that if you see an area that you may not be as strong in as the other, you work, you stay away from those areas, those situations, and you stay where you need to be with God. And so I pray every morning, thank you, Lord, for your grace and your mercy to help me, you know, stay where I need to be with you. And I don't trust myself to stay where I need to be. So I trust the Lord.
Sure.
Allow Him to live through me.
Good. Thank you, John. I think the prayer I have most prayed over my life has been this prayer. Create in me a clean heart, O God. What else? What do you do to stay spiritually healthy?
Men need men.
Men need men. Go to ministers' meetings. Go to associational ministers' meetings. Mike and I were talking at break time. Associations don't have ministers' meetings like they used to. Now, I live in Autauga County, and the Autauga Association permits me to come to their ministers group, meets twice a month. And I go, and I really, really enjoy it. I was always very involved in the association because I enjoy being with other ministers. And loners have a tough time in ministry. There's nothing wrong with being a loner, but I can tell you, if you're a loner, you're gonna have a tough time. You need to be with other people. You need to be with other ministers. If you're not living up to what you need to be as a minister, you'll shy away from being with other ministers because you'll feel like it's all over your face. They can see through the facade. So be with other ministers. Thank you. Yes, sir.
We're called to be disciples and make disciples. So I must have someone who is discipling me.
Good,
There
good.
must be,
Good.
I must have a mentor. Pastor, I've not reached the pinnacle. There's someone who's walking and needs to be pouring into me and can say to me the hard things, can sit with me in the mud, and can call out my baloney.
Oh, good, good, good. Have a mentor
Yes.
that will confront you.
Yeah. And I have one more.
Ask you the tough question. Go ahead.
And the one for me, I will not miss my time alone in the morning with my Savior.
Good, good. Devotional time. Good, thank you. Thank you, wonderful. Mentoring is significant. Have a mentor, someone you look to, someone you can be with. Have a mentor. Then mentor somebody else.
Yes.
As you climb lift.
Yes.
Have a Timothy. Mentor somebody else. Pour yourself into someone else. And then have a peer group. Be with fellow ministers. Those are good things. Anybody have something else? How do you stay spiritually healthy? Okay. Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
I think one of the things that's helped me is in that I don't necessarily have a mentor, but I've got some people that I can be vulnerable with and transparent with. And I think sometimes we don't want ourselves to be open to people of what's going on in our life because we've got to hold up this facade of everything's okay.
Right.
And so the transparency helps out. One of the things that I struggle with is sometimes I can be a little bit too transparent about what's going on. So I've got to gauge that and balance that well, but I think that vulnerability there.
Good, thank you. And thank you for mentioning that transparency, you have to be careful with it. Find a group of folks you can be transparent with. Be careful about being too transparent from the pulpit. A lot of people cannot accept that pastor. See, there are people who have three sexes, male, female, and ministers. That's wrong. But they put us in a different category.
Yeah.
So if we're too transparent with the whole group, that's risky. That gets you in trouble. I had to learn that the hard way. Okay, let's go to number 2. B, develop listening skills. The first duty of love is to listen. That's worth writing down. That's worth me saying again. The first duty of love is to listen. And we guys, especially we preacher type guys, we tend to not be good listeners. We're good talkers. We're good advisors. We're good tellers. We're just not good listeners. And if you want to be a good pastor with good pastoral care skills, learn to be a good listener. Some years ago, I was given this plaque, beautifully done. I know you can't see it way back there, but I was given this plaque, embroidered or whatever you call it, framed. And it was given to me not by a person who is that strongly supportive of me, or usually critical of me. So when she gave me this plaque, it's beautiful. I thanked her, hung it on the wall right across from my desk. And I'd look at it periodically, and here's what it says. Called to listen to the needs of others. That's good. Called to listen to the needs of others, even those unspoken. And the more I looked at that, is it John? Yeah, John. The more I looked at that, the more I thought, that's not fair. Called to listen to the needs of others, even those unspoken. How fair is that to expect you as a pastor to hear their needs when they don't express them? They just assume that you know them. How fair is that? So, my first impression was, thank you for the plaque, beautiful, beautifully done. My second impression was, that's not fair. My third impression was, yeah, that's fair. Anybody go to Southwestern Seminary? Was John Drakeford still teaching? You're young, so John Drakeford was a professor. Was John Drakeford there when you were there?
I don't think so, I'm only 20.
John Drakeford used to be a professor at Southwestern. I don't know what exactly who he taught. But he wrote a book. I think he first wrote, and Michael probably can help over here. I think first he wrote The Awesome Power of the Listening Ear.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say yes. The Awesome Power of the Listening Ear. And then he wrote a second book. Maybe he wrote 3 or 4 others, but he wrote another book about listening. Anybody remember the name of it? The Awesome Power of the Listening Heart. We listen with our ears and with our eyes and with our hearts. Your spouse does not have to tell you she's upset. You just know it, don't you? Because of the heart connection. You sense it immediately. Now, you may not handle it in the best way. I've mishandled it a lot of times, but I can sense when my wife is not well. She's upset, especially when she's upset with me. With my college degree, I minored in biology. I majored in psychology, and I got a master's degree in counseling. I wanted to be a pastoral counselor, but like most education, when I got that master's degree in counseling, most education, the more you know you don't know. Makes you aware of all that you don't know. When I got a master's degree in counseling, I realized I could not spend my time as a pastor of a church with long-term counseling. I just didn't have the time. And so do everything you can to develop listening skills. Most pastors, and you may be an exception to the rule, I am thankful that that's true, but most pastors are not good listeners. We listen for just a few minutes, and then we start telling somebody what to do. We're good tellers. We're good advisors. People want to be listened to. Ken Allen said that he got a letter from a person in a church where there's conflict, and he got it. He used to be in that role, and this was mentioned earlier, and so Ken was in the role of helping with conflict, church conflict. He said he was thankful he could hand it to Brian. Brian brought it to me. It's about, 4 pages?
Wow.
People want to be heard. When I would go into a church to do conflict mediation, people would come up to me and stick notes in my pocket. They were afraid that while I was there, I would not be able to hear them and hear their story and their position. They wanted to be heard, so they put a note in my pocket. People would call me when I was with the state board. People would call me, talk about what was going on in their church. And they would talk for 20 or 30 minutes, as long as every once in a while I'd go, As long as I grunted to let them know I was still there, they keep on talking. And I've got a couple of things down here. I've just learned. I didn't learn it in my master's program in counseling. Unless somebody's there to be critical of you, don't have a tablet and write things down. Because every time you write something down, they're wondering, what did he write down? Here's what I would do. I would listen to them, and then when they said something very significant that I would want to come back to maybe later, I'd pray, Lord, help me remember that, help me remember that, help me remember that. I wouldn't write it down. Again, they're wondering, what did I say that he's writing down? And I had to learn, I learned this from a very wise counselor. Don't ask questions. As long as they'll talk, let them talk. A question leads them in the direction of your interest, not theirs. As long as they'll talk, let them talk. And then after they've talked a while, and maybe they'll stop and take a deep breath and say, what do you think about this? You can paraphrase and say, let me see if I'm understanding what you're sharing. And you say, here's what I'm hearing. Is this correct? They may say, stupo, no. That's no. I say, well, try again, because I really want to understand. Try again. And they may talk for another 15, 20 minutes. Here's another thing I learned just by experience. It may be helpful to you. The initial thing they put on the table may not be the real issue. They're testing you to see if you will listen to them. And if you'll listen to them, then they may say, and here's another thing, and that's the biggie. At first, they were just trying to see if you cared enough about them to listen. And then they saw that you do, then they might put the real toughie on the table and say, here's what I really want us to talk about. Here's what I really want to share with you. Now, I've got down here something about negative inquiry. This is one of the toughest skills in listening. It applies when somebody's there, especially being critical of you or being critical of the church. In that case, if somebody's there being critical, write it down. Let them know you care enough about it. Do you write it down? And then after you've written down maybe several things. Negative inquiry, and it's broader than this, but this is one application of negative inquiry, which is tough to do because if somebody's there being critical, you're defensive. I used to try to teach listening skills to ministers, and I realized how inadequate I was when somebody in this building mentioned a criticism that they'd heard somebody give toward me, and I immediately got defensive. And so be careful if somebody's there critical. But a person would call me when I was here as a leader care person. A person would call me and talk about all the issues in their church. And they'd say, I want you to come down here and straighten this thing out. Of course, I had no authority to do so. And I would say, now, ma'am, you need to go tell your pastor exactly what you told me. And she would say, oh, I did. And I learned to say, how long ago has that been? Well, it's been about a year. I said, is it time to try again? Well, I'm afraid to go. He got so angry. He came up out of his chair, got so angry, leaned across the desk. I was afraid. I said, well, tell him if you go see him again, tell him. And I encourage you, all I could do is really lead her toward what the Bible says. Matthew 18:15. If you've got aught against your brother, go to him. And so I was trying to direct her to do what was biblical. And we'd talk about her going again and saying, now the last time I came, you got so angry that I was scared. And if you do that again, I'm gonna get up and leave. So address it up front. Or ask if you can have somebody else come with you. Don't surprise him walking in with somebody else. But ask if you, I have been used a few times as an observer in this kind of situation, where I would sit on the side and just observe the interaction. I didn't say a word. Maybe they asked me to pray, but I would pray, but I was there just as an observer to observe the interaction. So see if that could help. Maybe the deacon chair sit in something, I don't know. But negative inquiry, is there anything else that you want to say to me that you've not shared yet? Negative inquiry, so that you let them know, I want to know everything that's you're upset about. Let's see if I have anything else written down here.
Tell us what the plaque is.
I'm sorry?
Tell us what the plaque is.
He did. He read the plaque. The listening skills.
You're thinking plaque on my teeth, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Bob. This is the plaque I was talking
That is
about.
the plaque. That's the plaque.
It called to listen to the needs of others, even those unspoken. And I just thought of, a guy came into my office one time, and I knew him. Pastor of a church over in West Alabama. Pretty tough area, pretty tough church. And when he came in, he sat like this. Didn't even lift up his head to look at me. And the building, the facility we were in before this one was right next to Baptist Medical Center. And he had just come from Baptist Medical Center, where he had seen if he could apply for a job as a chaplain. He was so hurt in ministry, he didn't think he could survive. And he kept his head down. And he went from the hospital to where I was, then he was going to the employment agency, which was just down the street. Alabama Employment Agency. He was wanting to leave ministry. And he told me, and after we talked for a while, he still kept his head down. What does that say? Somebody won't look you in the eye, keep their head down. They're depressed. They're depressed. And he was very depressed. And I suggested at the end of our conversation, toward the end of our conversation, that we plug him in with one of our Christian counselors, and we did. And he was indeed depressed, worked through it, ended up as a director of missions in an association in northern Alabama, and I think went from there into another church as pastor. But obviously, just by demeanor, by manner, by posture, you could tell without him having to say. I got depressed one time. Here I was, pastor. I was pastor, and I was going through an episode. It was with my younger son who was ill. I got very depressed. And here I was with a master's degree in counseling, and I could not diagnose myself. I had another person say, "Hey, Dale, you're depressed." When they said it, I thought, "Oh, that's right, I am." And I got some help. I got on some medication, went to a counselor, and I'm sharing that. This may be too transparent for you, I don't know. But I'm sharing that those things happen. If they happen, it's not going to be easy for you to diagnose yourself. Go to somebody who can help you. They have little surveys they can give you now, and about 6 questions, and you chart yourself, and that'll help them say, "Hey, you need to plug into a counselor." So get counseling, get medication, and ministry, pastoral ministry is stressful. Do you know why? Because it's people intensive. Any vocation that is people intensive is more, people in those vocations are more prone to depression. Because there's no end to people's needs. If one day you could get through everything you thought you needed to do that day, guess what would happen the next morning? You'd have a whole new long list of things. The needs of people are unending. Any vocation that is people intensive is more prone to depression. It's stressful, it's not depression. It's stressful. And so do things that help you deal with your own stress. That's off the subject. Let's see, what's next? Grief ministry. Oh, goodness. What is grief? Define grief.
Loss.
Loss. Grief is the normal, natural, necessary response to loss. Grief is the normal, natural, necessary response to loss. Michael hit it right on the nail. Loss. Someone said that on Sunday morning when you stand up before a congregation, 25% of the people in that congregation are in grief. And what are some of the losses that people normally naturally have? What are some of the losses that affect grief? Bring on grief. What are some of the natural losses that you'll have in a congregation?
Death of loved ones.
Death of a loved one,
Employment.
Loss of a job,
Marriage.
goodness,
Loss of a marriage.
loss of divorce.
Ugh.
Oh, and that not only affects the divorcees, that affects children, that affects in-laws, oh, that affects a whole bunch of people. All of these losses can affect a whole group of people.
Loss of mobility.
Loss of mobility. I'm in grief right now
Yeah.
because of my wife's condition.
Bless you.
And, see, a year ago, she was driving. She doesn't drive now. She was driving. You know, she'd fix supper. And none of those things are true now. And I'm grieving. I'm really struggling to adjust to a whole new lifestyle for me. So I'm in grief. What else do I have down here about grief? Oh, the one thing that wasn't mentioned is the loss of a pet. Is that a grief situation? In some persons' lives, it is a real grief situation.
Loss of a loved one.
Loss what?
That's the loss of a loved one.
Yes, it is the loss of a loved one. The University of Alabama used to have a certificate program, not a degree program, but a certificate program called thanatology. I don't know if they still have it. I went through their program, certificate program on thanatology. Everybody here knows that thanatos is the Greek word for death. So it's a study of death. I had to take 10 classes, I think it was 10, just one-day classes. These were not semester classes, one-day classes. I had to take 10 of them and then do another little thing with a book. I went through that, and in one of those sessions, there was a veterinarian there. Most of the people in those sessions were hospice people, you know, that kind of situation. But there was a veterinarian there because he had to deal with people grieving over the loss of a pet. Don't tell jokes about the death of a pet because they're not funny to a lot of people. So be careful. Be super sensitive. Learn what you can about grief. Yes, sir. John?
Before you get too far past it, cause I know I'm still struggling with it sometimes, but back on developing listening skills,
Yeah.
one of the biggest problem I've found with that, especially as a pastor, and speaking with other pastors,
Yeah,
they don't even realize they need to develop it. They think they are automatically
yeah,
good listeners.
yeah.
That's the hardest thing I ever had to do.
Yeah.
To be a good listener.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, John. Listening is hard work because you have to put everything else to the side. And you're listening to someone, and especially if they're being critical of you, you don't want to hear it. So listening is hard work. And you have to be careful and focus on that person, trying to understand there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is just, automatic. If somebody shouted something, I'd hear it. And, but with listening, you're trying to understand. It's more than just hearing. You're trying to understand. And effort to understand can be hard work. And what John said was we just assume that we're able to listen well. Most ministers, I could even say most men, you've heard of male pattern baldness? There's also male pattern listening. Most men are not good listeners. Women are far better listeners than we are. We're especially as ministers, we're tellers, we're advisors, we're talkers. So don't assume. It's right to assume that you're not as good a listener as you ought to be. That's the right thing to assume. Assume you need to sharpen listening skills, and it is hard work. I think, John, in my studies, I think one of the hardest assignments I ever had was I had to go engage someone in a conversation and try to keep them talking without my having input on my situation. I had to try to keep them talking for 1 hour. Oh, that's a long time. And that was a tough assignment because when we hear something, we want to give our 2 cents worth.
Sure.
And again, it's most especially tough if they're being critical of us. We become defensive. We want to explain what happened or why it happened and how it happened. Okay, let's see. And thank you, John, for taking us back to listening skills. With each one of these, I should ask at the end any input because I want this to be as dialogical as possible. You've got there's a lot of experience in this room, and we can benefit from hearing of your experience. Okay. Anything else about grief? I've got down. I'm going to go ahead. I've got down as H, letter H. I think the outline only goes through G, but I've got that down as H. Become an expert in funerals and weddings. Become an expert in funerals. Understand how people are grieving. They won't remember sermons you preached. They will remember that you conducted Mama's funeral. They may not remember anything you said, but they'll remember who married so-and-so, so-and-so. Funerals and weddings are big, big issues. If you want to become a good pastor, become an expert in having funerals and in conducting weddings, performing weddings. Those are bonding experiences. They'll remember you forever. Now, I've made some flubs in both of those, but thankfully, I think most of the funerals I've had and weddings, I think most of them went okay. But you need to become an expert, and the bigger the church, the more expert you need to become, because it's harder and harder to pastor folks in big churches. Okay, back to, let's see, what time is this supposed to be over?
10:45.
Okay, I'm not gonna get through with all this. D, learn names. Study the directory. Churches have gotten away from having printed pictorial directories, they've gone to digital thing. But get a directory and study the directory. I learned this with my 21 interims. An interim has to be a faster pastor. And one way to faster become pastor when you're doing an interim is to learn everybody's name. And when I become an interim pastor, and it's even more important when you're a regular pastor, but I study the directory. I'll read through it. I read through it 3 or 4 times a week. And as I'm studying for my sermon or my teaching on Wednesday night, I will also go over the directory. And I'll make comments in the directory. My directory, they're all marked up. On the front page of a directory from Penwalla, that was my last interim. I had about on the first page, first time I met a woman, she had the sourest face, and I put sour face on the directory. I just did things to help me remember their names. Yes, David.
Right inside my Bible, this one was a newer Bible, so I don't have as many, but I will have a sticky note, and I will write down the person's name, and I will make a note, something about them to help me remember their name. And then when church starts, you see them over there, and you just take your Bible and look. And
That's good,
get that
good.
name right there and go. And the sweetest sound to a person's ear is to have his or her name spoken by someone who he doesn't think knows his name.
Yeah.
It'll make a lasting impression on
Thank you,
him.
David.
It's a good word.
And that's the reason David would, how long were you at your church?
Northside, almost 28 years.
28 years. That's one thing that enabled him to stay 28 years.
And I love my wife, that was the most important.
And that's a great thing to do, because you're gonna have your Bible with you.
Oh, yeah.
And see, I have done, I think, I carry note cards. And before I leave on Sunday morning, go to a church where I'm an interim, I put this note card in my pocket, put a pen in my pocket too. Especially if I meet somebody who's a visitor or guest, I write their name down. About 3 weeks ago, it was Easter Sunday, I taught Sunday school at First Baptist Montgomery. And at the end of the session, a person came up, member of First Baptist, and was telling somebody else right in front of me. He said, one reason I joined this church is because this guy knew my name. He said, on Sunday morning when I was visiting, I'd go out to a certain restaurant and eat. He said one Sunday he went to that restaurant too, talking about me. And he went by me and called me by name. He said, I was amazed that he knew my name. As David has said, people it's a pleasant sound for people to hear their own name. So learn names. Well, any other comments about learning people's names? Great statement about the most pleasant sound a person hears is their own name. See, I do it for my sake, not only for theirs. Once I know somebody's name, it's personal. There's a personal connection. Prior to that, they're just a digit. They're just a face. But once I learn their name, I make a personal connection with that person. And another thing about learning names is every time you see them, call them by name. Call their name, and it helps make a groove in your brain about their name. But it also is very meaningful and helpful to them. Call them by name.
Dr. Huff, can I just say one quick thing? When I was really praying and asking the Lord if this is where I'm supposed to move 2 years ago and leave where I'd been for a total of 26 years, all in all, we had come and had some meetings. My wife said, let's eat before we go back to Prattville. We've been looking for houses, doing all this thing, and houses dropping left and right, and everything just going the wrong way at that point. She said, I want to eat at this place called Uncle Mick's. I don't know about that place, and about that time said said they weren't open, it was pouring rain. I said, let's just go somewhere else. She said, it's only 5 minutes before they open, just wait. So we waited, walked in, Dale Huff and Linnell standing in the line, and he immediately said, well, hey, Brian, how you doing? Man, it's been years. So what he's telling you, it made an impression. It was just another God wink for me to say, you know, here's the man that was in a position that maybe I'll be called to, and so God continued to work. So thank you, Dr. Duff.
Oh, thank you, Brian, thank you. Well, I don't know. I'll start this next one. Personal touch. Now, I'm not a hugger, although I've hugged several of you today because it's been a long time since I've seen you. I'm not a real hugger, but I'm a toucher. I'll touch you by a handshake, I'll touch you on the elbow, I'll touch you on the shoulder, just to touch. I'm a toucher. And there probably are some people who don't even like a light touch, but I'm a toucher. I'll just somehow touch you. And as a pastor, Sunday morning is your best opportunity to touch 100 people plus. Position yourself. Now, when I'm an interim, sometimes I go in and somebody will say, well, the deacons and the pastor have a prayer before the service. And I'll say, that's wonderful. You deacons pray, I'm going to be out among the people.
Yeah.
And I'm walking out up and down the aisles, and I'm touching folks. That's your best opportunity to touch people. Make yourself available on Sunday morning for a touch. Now, I'm going to tell you this story, then we're going to take a break. There are people in your church who desperately need a touch. They feel so lonely. They're an outcast. There was a woman at First Baptist Montgomery, strange-looking woman. She was a strange woman. She sat on the second pew, right on the aisle.
She had a sour face. She had a sour face.
She had a sour face. Worse than a sour face, too. And people would really, because of her appearance, people would shy away from her. But she sat on that second pew, right on the aisle, and she would put her hand up on top of the pew. And as pastor, when I was going out after I had a prayer, I'd touch her hand and going up the aisle. And one Sunday, right at the time we started, maybe a minute or two after we started, an usher brought a couple down into her pew. And they indicated, scoot over. She said no. And so they slipped in and sat down beside her. And then the guy came to me after the service and told me what she had said. She said, I can't scoot over because the pastor comes by and touches my hand. And she was not sitting there. Now, that's no commentary on me. That's a commentary on her. She needed somebody. She needed somebody to treat her as if she existed. There are people in your church who need a touch, who need to know that you know them, that you care about them. Position yourself on Sunday morning where you can touch a lot of folks, even if it's not a physical touch, that you acknowledge them, that they exist, that you care about them. Call them by name. The 3 R's. David, again.
I would go to athletic events as much as I could too, and stay around and talk to the kids, and their parents hate that.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Thank you, David.
So
Thank you.
that's something that we can do. That
Yeah.
takes a lot of extra time, but man, it just it does those kids' hearts so good.
Yeah, yeah. And may I ricochet off of that? Thank you, David. You're so right. Right on. Couple family visiting First Baptist Montgomery had 2 young children, 2 boys. I'm guessing they were 3 and 5 years of age, about that. And first Sunday they visited, I spoke to them at the door, and I knelt down to speak to their boys. So I could look their boys straight in the eye. I knelt down. And a few Sundays later, they joined the church. And the husband, the daddy, said to me later, said we wanted to be in a church where the pastor would stoop down and pay attention to our boys. Those little things touch. Let them know you care about them.
Dr. Dale?
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, I've noticed this, especially in the church around now. There's a pew, there's a couple of pews where the widow ladies
Yeah.
sit, and they're older, they're by themselves. Their children are grown and gone, and their grandkids are up above the age of sitting in their laps, and they don't get hugs
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
They don't get that touch, and they look forward to that touch, just a handshake, a touch on the shoulder, or even a hug from time to time.
Yeah.
It's medicine for them.
And thank you. What is your name?
Derek.
Derek. Good. I can remember that. My older son's name, Derek. Thank you, Derek.
Yes, sir.
Older people tend to get shoved to the side.
Yeah.
So that, and one of the things, and this is a little, it's time to take a break. I'm sorry. Let's break and come back, and then we'll pick up where we've left off. Okay, break time. F is conflict prevention. You're gonna have conflict. You're gonna have conflict. Where 2 or 3 are gathered together, there will be conflict. So you're gonna have conflict. And we don't worry about most of it, we work through it. But there's some conflict that will divide the fellowship. Conflict where people start recruiting for a side. And the group gets divided and galvanized in a position. And a way of conflict prevention, serious conflict. You don't need to try to prevent all conflict. It's just going to happen. So just realize it's going to happen. But a way to prevent serious conflict is to perfect the communication system, where people know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and why it's going to happen. Now, there are some things you cannot communicate with the congregation at large. Some things have to be kept private, of course. But the more they know about what's going to happen, the more they know about what's going on. If you want to improve a relationship with a person or with a group of people, perfect the communication process. The more and better you communicate with somebody, the better the relationship can be. Now, it's almost impossible to not communicate. Silence is communication. Avoidance is communication. A slap is communication. A slammed door is communication. You can almost not communicate. That's not the way I want to say that. Anyway, but everything, just about everything communicates something, but make it positive. Let me tell you, and I don't mean, goodness, I'm not even sure. The tendency has been to move away from monthly business meetings. I understand that. Business meetings are usually not that pleasant. The tendency to move toward quarterly business meetings. I don't have any problem with that. But when a church gets in conflict, guess what happens? They automatically, the leadership automatically moves back toward a monthly business meeting. They instinctively realize there's need to communicate better and more often. Because out of no communication comes all kinds of rumors. And rumors spread off of conflict like tornadoes off of a hurricane. And so the more and better you can affect the communication process, the more you will do to prevent serious conflict. Now, you're going to have conflict, period, but you don't want to have serious conflict where your fellowship gets sided and divided and pit one against the other. And here's what happens in church conflict. Is church conflict potentially meaner than conflict in other groups?
Yes.
I see some heads nodding yes. You know why? Because we spiritualize our position. You don't have the privilege of doing that in the Kiwanis Club. But in the church, people will say, well, this is the reason I want to do this, because it's God's will. And they make their will God's will. And once you identify yourself as God's people, God's wills folks, what do you do to the other side? They're the devil's folks. And that really makes it tough. I've been in several congregational mediation sessions where one group would say, and y'all are of the devil. Now these are good Christian folks. But because one group has said, we are doing God's will, you must be doing the devil's will. And boy, that's hard to eradicate and change. I've already said, let's see, in number 3, in conflict, increase communication. Let me see if I've written down anything else here. It's very unlikely that in your entire ministry you will have to deal with a true blue antagonist. A true blue antagonist is somebody who's totally unreasonable, not only with current situations, but they've been unreasonable for years. They're known as being unreasonable.
It's their spiritual gift, right?
I don't know from what direction it is, David, but they are antagonistic, and they'll let you know that they are longer than several other pastors, and they'll be there when you're gone, and they tend to put down roots. And several years ago, many years ago, I don't even know if the book's in print. Goodness, I tried to remember much about it last night. I was thinking, but a book came out several years ago talking about antagonists in your church. Kenneth Hawk, H-A-U-G-K, wrote it. Did I hear somebody say, uh-huh?
I got it.
Yeah. Hold on to it. I had 3 copies. I've given them all away. But Antagonists in Your Church. And it's an interesting book. We invited, when he wrote it, we invited Kenneth Hawk to come to Birmingham. We sponsored, as well as the Birmingham Association, as well as one of the hospitals with the chaplaincy. We sponsored him coming to Birmingham from Missouri, I think he lived. And we had a one-day conference. And in that book, Kenneth Hawk says this. Now, much of it will not apply easily to your church situation. And don't think that everybody who disagrees with you is an antagonist, because they're probably not. But if you have a true blue antagonist, try as best you can to sideline them, to domesticate them. Don't give them a bullhorn. Our tendency, I'm trying to think of words of a poem. Michael would know it for me, but our tendency is to try to include folks who are critical. If they're critical about, building and grounds, to put them on the building and grounds committee. And again, you'll probably live a whole ministry lifetime without having a true blue antagonist. So be careful with how you will hear, and I've got to be careful how I say this. But if it's a true blue antagonist who creates difficulty constantly, don't give them a bullhorn. Don't give them a position. Try as best you can to put them to the side, to domesticate them. It's not going to be easy, because probably when you went there, they were deeply rooted in a position. And it's hard to move them out of that, because they've been there a long time. And they've got folks who listen to them, who follow them. So be careful. But there may be an opportunity to come when you can kind of move them to the sideline. This is probably not a good example. But when I was at First Baptist Montgomery, we had a food service director, woman, and she was hard to live with. And, but, you know, we somehow tolerated her over the years. But there was a deacon with a banquet. And again, she was just always hard to live with. And the deacon chairman, who was so concerned about everything going well, he went into the kitchen 3 times and said, "Are things going to be ready on time?" And her name was Rebecca, and Rebecca responded to it. The 3rd time he went in, she said, "Now don't you come back in here again." This was the deacon chairman. He came straight to me. He said, "We got to get rid of that woman."
You gotta fix that.
Now, I knew that, but I was thankful I had an ally in the deacon chairman. Some months later, one Wednesday, I don't remember what it was over, she came to my office and she said, "I quit." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I quit." I said, "Okay." And she went back upstairs and told the 2 other cooks who worked in the kitchen with her. She said, "He fired me."
Yeah.
So they came down, the 2 cooks, and said, "Did you fire Rebecca?" I said, "No, she quit." And one of them said, "Well, I quit too." I said, "Okay." My point being, if there's a point to it at all that's that's reasonable to hear, my point being, if you wait long enough with someone who's deeply rooted, there may come an opportunity when they threaten to quit. Let them.
Don't talk about it.
Now, if you try to force them out, you're gonna have all kinds of difficulties. But if you just bide your time and pray that the Lord will create the right situation, they're gonna threaten to leave, and let them. As best you can. Don't give them a bullhorn. Don't give them a position from which they can make more trouble. Try as best you can to put them on the sideline, domesticate them. If that word means anything. Yes, sir.
I've always heard it called plowing around the stumps.
That's good. Plowing around the stump. Good, dear. Thank you.
If you dynamite the stump, you go around.
One day that stump's gonna be gone, and it's gonna leave a hole, but it won't, and in no time, something good's gonna be grown in that hole.
Yeah. Well, and here's one thing we assume with some people, maybe not antagonistic people, but we assume with some people who are well-to-do that they give a lot of money. And they'll use that, they'll threaten you. If you don't do certain things the way I want, I'm gonna leave. And we assume they're giving a lot of money. And we find as often as not that when they leave, there's no difference in the offering plate. We just fear the loss of income. But, I'm moving too far afield here, I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh, here's one thing I've written down on my notes. What do you think is the most common cause of serious conflict in a Southern Baptist church? What do you think is the most common cause of serious conflict in a Southern Baptist church?
Music.
Yeah.
Music, is that what you said, David? Well, we've had our music wars and are still having them.
Money.
Money,
Change.
change,
That's it.
yeah, folks resist change. I've got something down here to talk about change, so I'll talk about it in a minute. Do you know what we've discovered? And this is not Dale Huff's opinion, which would not be worth much. This is by survey over a long period of time. We've discovered by survey of a lot of people, We did it through associations. We were able to cover 80+% of the associations in the Southern Baptist Convention with these surveys. That's pretty good coverage.
Yeah.
You know, the most common cause of serious conflict in a Southern Baptist church is control. When somebody tries to control, it can be anybody who tries to control. Can be a pastor, can be a minister of music, can be the choir, can be WMU, can be anyone who tries to control what a Baptist church does will create conflict. As pastor, be the leader, but don't be a controller. There's a difference between power and control. Control is coercive. Control is manipulative. As a pastor, you're given a certain amount of authority. You're given a certain amount of power. Use it wisely, justly, Christ-honoringly, but don't try to control. Don't try to manipulate. And it's easy for us as preacher types to manipulate. All we have to do is say, God told me, or it's God's will. Be careful, be careful. That can be controlling. You're using mighty powerful ally when you say, God told me that it's got to be this way, or God's will is that we do it this way. Be careful. Ask folks to pray with you about seeking God's will about something. And but be careful about being controlling. It will create conflict. We have a real issue about pastoral authority, and you may differ greatly. We are given authority, especially in Baptist churches, authority to preach up to a certain degree. We're given that authority, but authority is something granted. And so you are granted authority to a certain. You probably do not get much authority until you've been there 5 years or longer. The longer you've been there, the more they'll give you certain authority to do things. But they'll give you authority immediately. They'll give you authority to preach. Okay, let's see. Comments, questions, answers? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
And this is a word that you shared years ago that I found very helpful. A lot of times when a church gets into an issue, they want to put it up for a vote. And I know you advise not to do that because you choose sides.
A vote is automatically divisive. And so what we try to do now, there's some times when you cannot avoid a vote. But if we can, we try to avoid a vote because a vote by its very nature divides into two groups. What we will try to do is sometimes when we're kind of forced to this, we will have what we call a congregational meeting. It's not a business meeting. No motions can be put on the floor. But we try to have a congregational meeting where people can voice and make a comment or ask questions and get information. But we try to avoid a vote. And so as much as possible, try to avoid a vote. Now, most of the time when we vote, like we vote on a budget, most of the time, it's just natural, normal. But if there's conflict, if people think they can settle conflict with a vote, they're wrong. More often than not, you'll come out of the vote more conflicted than you were before the vote. I've had people call me and say, we thought we settled this months ago when we had a vote, but we're worse off now than we were before the vote. That will typically be true. So be careful about thinking you're going to settle conflict with a vote. Yes, sir, John.
You touched on it when you first started out about prevention on communication. And you was talking, and very few of us realize nonverbal communications. And I still struggle with it. My wife loves to tell me to fix my face. And very few of us don't even notice it when people are talking to us. Our facial features or our posture changes. And we can cause conflicts the way we posture when people are talking to us, or how our facial features change as they're speaking. You know, we have to be careful with that. You started talking about nonverbal. You know, but the majority, just when people start talking, our facial features or our posture, and it can cause problems.
Well, and John, you especially, how tall are you?
6'4", 5 shoes.
When he's on holy ground, he's on 6'4".
Especially someone as big as John is. And see, women tend not to be as nearly as tall as we guys can be. And when we're standing up like this, and here's a woman like this, she's intimidated by us just by our posture, just by our size. And that's one reason it's sometimes good to sit down. Because you're not nearly as tall sitting down, John, as you are standing up. But I've had situations where women would talk about their pastor being intimidating to them. And their pastor, I knew him, he was a teddy bear. But standing up, goodness, he was about your size. And they felt intimidated by, he wasn't meaning to be intimidating, but they sensed that. And I one time was in Thailand on a mission trip. And they told me, they said, when you're speaking, never do this. They said that was the way the Dutch colonizers did in the area. I'm sorry, it was Indonesia. I'm sorry. In Indonesia, I've been to Thailand and Indonesia, but they said in Indonesia, because the Dutch colonizers would stand like this before a group. They said, don't put your hands on your hips and talk like this. And so there are ways that we do communicate, John, you're very right, by our posture and by our facial features. Yeah, good. Other answers? Help us out. Any others? Okay, what time's our next break?
12 o'clock, we will eat lunch.
Okay, we've got it. Oh, this session is an hour long. Okay, we've got some time. In fact, we may have more time than we got stuff to cover. Counseling ministry. Be careful. Be careful. Now, I think some folks go too far with it. I've heard wise guys say that they won't counsel with another woman without their own wife being present. Yeah, that always seemed a little too far for me, but don't counsel a woman unless there's a secretary close by or somebody close by, because it's too easy to find yourself in trouble. And you're the one in charge of that situation. Now, she may come in there being flirtatious, but you're the one who stops that. You're the one who doesn't respond. You're always responsible. You're the power person in the room. But be careful. I'm guessing that with a high percentage, and I don't know, 50+%, a high percentage of our guys who get in trouble with an improper relationship with a woman, it starts in a counseling session. When I was in seminary, that was a long time ago, I heard that initially it's compassion. and then it becomes passion. And I've had women share with me things they should not tell anybody but God. And I have learned to say, and this surprises them, but I have learned to say, when they say, do you want to hear the details? I've learned to say, no, ma'am. No. I already told you that I wanted to be a pastoral counselor. Got a master's degree in counseling. But it taught me that I should not try to be a pastoral counselor. I will have one session with somebody, and then I try to refer them to somebody who has the time and the expertise to go much farther than I do. I tried to become an expert referrer. I tried to make myself aware of all the resources within a reasonable drive time of persons who were really equipped and able to help. So I would quickly refer. Answers, questions? Yes,
I would
David.
always talk to women in our church library that has a huge glass window.
Good.
So everybody that walks down the hall can look in there and see us.
Yeah, good.
That's what I did.
Yeah. In my effort to really be helpful, try to be helpful to persons, I have made some mistakes, David. And I realized after I started that that was a mistake. On Labor Day, one Labor Day, I was at home grilling hamburgers for my boys and wife, me. And I got a phone call from a young woman in the church. And she and her husband had just joined a few weeks before. And she said, I need to talk to you. I went to the phone. She said, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, we can schedule a time tomorrow or the next day. And she said, I need to talk to you today. And I made a mistake. I said, okay, I'll come to the church. I'll be there at a certain time and we will talk. So I was in that church in my office alone with her. Nobody else in the whole building. And she talked and shared. She was angry with God because of her daddy's death from cancer. And she was emotional and upset. And she asked at the end of the session, she said, can I come over there and hug you? Now, as far as I know, her intention was very innocent. And we did hug in a proper way. But that was risky. That was foolish. That was foolish on my part to be in an empty church building with just me and her. Because you have no way of knowing what she's going to go out and say. And I am so thankful. I am so thankful that the Lord has protected me.
Amen.
And I thank the Lord for his protection, that over the years, see, I think I may have been vulnerable at times, but I'm thankful that I did not have any woman who came on to me. I am so thankful the Lord protected. Lead me not into temptation, deliver me from evil. So be careful with counseling. And I've already said, I do not have long-term counseling situation with a person. I'll see them, try to refer them, and if I'll stay in touch with them, but I will not have another scheduled counseling appointment with them. Be careful about counseling. Anything else that needs to be said there? Okay, I've got two things written down here, and I've already referred to one of them that are not on your list. H is funerals and weddings, and I've already said this. Become an expert in how to conduct a funeral and how to perform a wedding. Become an expert. Jay Wolf, who was former pastor of First Baptist Montgomery, is the best I've ever known in both of those. I've told him many times, I wish every young pastor had the privilege of walking with you from the time you get a death notice. You go to the home, and Jay works it so that as many family members as possible can gather, and that's always a good thing to do. And he lets them, he spends a good bit of time there, and he lets them talk about the person who died. I'm gonna tell you something, I'm sorry, I just thought of this. Ricocheting off. I was once called by a man who was not a church member of the church I pastored. He called and said his wife had died and asked if I could conduct the funeral. And I told him I could, and we went to come to I knew him through the Kiwanis Club. That's how the contact was, connection was made. I went to his house, and he was there, went to his apartment they lived in. He was there, and his grandson was there. And we were talking about his wife, and how we were planning the funeral service. And I was asking him about some of the qualities of his wife that could be shared. And I asked the grandson, I said, what do you think of when you think about your grandmama, or whatever? I asked the question. And he said, well, she taught me how to cheat at cards. I was not going to share that near the people. But let folks share. That's good. That's therapeutic for them to be able to share. So let folks share. And then Jay Wolf at the funeral, he would talk about what each grandchild had said. Now his funeral services, I've already said he's the best I've ever known, and he is. But I have a short funeral. The funeral home folks like me because I have a short funeral. Jay has a long funeral. And here's another little thing, very little. I try to get to funerals and weddings 1 hour ahead of time. And I just check in with the family to let them know that I'm there, so they don't have to worry about the preacher. When's the preacher gonna get here? I try to alleviate that from there with all the things they have to deal with. I try to get to a wedding and a funeral 1 hour ahead of time. Comments, questions, answers? Yes, David?
I would try to go, or I would go every time with the family and pray with them before they view privately. And, just pray for their strength for that.
Sure.
Viewing and go in there with them and just sort of stand back. But, I'd always go with them beforehand, and because once people start coming, you don't have a chance to do anything like that.
And David, you're talking about when the funeral service is being
Right.
held.
Yeah, the service.
One minister I know, he became very helpful to a family. He would go with them to the funeral home when they first made arrangements. And when they picked out a casket, he would go and help them go through the process. He became known, and they would call him instead of the pastor, because they knew he would meet them at the funeral home when they first met. Yes, John?
I'm hoping, I think it's the busy pastor guide that gives you the walkthrough, because from the moment you find out as a pastor that you should be there for the family. It walks you through the process.
And so there's a resource that you're referring to. And there are funeral resources and wedding resources. And I'm out of touch. I gave away almost all of my books when I retired. And so I don't look for new books to buy nowadays. But find the resources. There are articles in magazines, Christian magazines, that can be helpful. Learn everything. Become the best you can be with weddings and funerals. people will always remember who conducted a funeral, who performed a wedding. Yes, John?
And like I say, with the timing of arriving for a wedding, I know, my niece, I married her. And I'd use a half hour, but little simple things, it's her day. And she almost called the wedding off because when they delivered the cake, it was leaning.
Oh.
But because I was there early enough to catch that,
Yeah,
I was able to talk to her.
yeah,
Because you'd be surprised at the small things
yeah.
that will blow up.
Well, it's such a stressful time. And so little things become much bigger
Big things.
because that day is so, so important. Yeah, okay. Good. Let's see. The last thing I have, and we've got a few minutes left before lunch. The last thing I have is you are, as in a pastoral role, with pastoral leadership, you are to be a change agent. I think Brian mentioned that with change, or it was mentioned, I think it was Brian, that with change, people naturally, maybe it was Michael, people naturally resist change. It pushes them off balance. But you are to be a change agent. And here's what I see as that meaning. You're to take a church from where it is to where it ought to be.
Okay.
You're to take a church from where it is toward where it ought to be. So you have leadership responsibility. I came out of seminary knowing a little bit about pastoring, knowing a little bit about preaching. I didn't know anything about leadership. And they had to force me. The first church I pastored full-time had to force me to be a leader. They kept telling me they wanted to do certain things, and I said, well, y'all do that. Or I kept trying to hand it off to the deacons or whatever. Finally, I realized that as pastor, I was to be a leader. And a leader is a change agent, but go slow. Now, I had a colleague at one time named Harper Shannon. Harper, and in his heyday, was, in my opinion, the best Baptist preacher in the state of Alabama. Harper was really good. And Harper, smart. And he always said, make changes as soon as you can when you go in, during the honeymoon. And some have honeymoons and some don't. But I was never that smart. I can say Harper could have been, but I was not that smart. When I went into a church, the first things I thought needed to be changed, by the time I'd been there a year, I'd changed my mind. Those were not the really needful things for change. So it took me a while to really learn what needed to be changed. So my first year was always building relationships, learning the culture. Every church has its own personality. And I had to learn that personality, learn the culture. Then after a year, I felt like I knew enough to realize what really needed to have the investment of my efforts to change that church. But I was not a quick learner. It took me a long time. I've got down here, go slow. At First Baptist Eufaula, they had pulpit furniture that was so rickety it had to be wired together. And it was not comfortable. And one day I was in the sanctuary with a woman named Mabel Beasley. Her husband and I were turkey hunters together. And when I'd go turkey hunting with her husband, I'd get there at 3:30 in the morning. She'd have breakfast ready for us. Goodness. And I thought we were pretty close friends. And one day she was maybe arranging flowers or something. She was in the sanctuary. And I said, Mabel, I sat in that pastor's chair that was wired together. I said, maybe we need to get rid of this furniture. She's, without even looking up, she just said, that furniture will be here when you're gone. And it was, you're right. People, be careful. Now, you and I are change agents. We are responsible to try to take that church from where it is to where it ought to be. But don't die on the hill of rickety pulpit furniture. But choose very carefully what you will invest yourself in really trying to make substantive change. Yes, sir. Bob.
Others may remember this, but I remember you talking about this on many occasions. You had that picture you showed us of them folks in the boat.
Yeah.
That was all over the place.
Yeah.
And talking about us moving that boat around.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you, Bob. Bob's had to put up with me in several conferences. Oh goodness. What else? You've had to learn some. You carry the scars of being a change agent. Help us out. What'd you learn? Yes, sir.
I learned this from a mentor years ago. I didn't agree then. He said celebrate every victory, especially when you're early in. I want to celebrate the big victories. And he said, well, you might have one or two of those a year, but you might have, like Vacation Bible School, we had this many decisions. Or you've got, at my church now, our Sunday school classes are trying to see who can invite the most people for the quarter, and it's done by ratio. Our special friends class won because we have a lady named Virginia who's at a rehab place, and she just goes door to door. And I thought, that's still a big deal. We're going to celebrate that. That class won over the class with 50 people who invited all their friends. But one class won because a lady went door to door. So when I saw her, I said, you won it for your class, didn't you? She said, no. But for her, she's a special friend. You know what I'm talking about. Down syndrome. She's a special friend. She got the gist of that. For her to personalize that she helped her class, she helped her church, that was a big deal. And so everybody I went to, I said, if Virginia George can go room to room fearlessly, you can go to the next cubicle fearlessly and tell your, the person that you don't like, that you work with every day. So we made that small victory a huge victory.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Good. Thank you. And when I was starting out, and not only starting out for many years, I read everything that Lyle Schaller. I'm a Schallerian. I read everything that Lyle Schaller wrote. And one of the books he wrote, I can't remember the title exactly, but it was about celebrate. Celebrate everything you can, and applaud the victories. Let the Lord get the credit, but applaud the victories. Give God the glory, but applaud the victories. It helps a church have a wonderful sense about itself. And so that's very, very wise suggestion, information. Thank you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was listening to H.B. Charles Jr., and he was talking to George Hurt. George Hurt served with him at Sinai in Los Angeles, and then became the pastor at Sinai when HB went to Jacksonville at Shiloh. And one of the things that led to George, I think is his name, George Hurt, being the pastor there is he was different than other people with a few extra things. So someone would call and say, Pastor, what time are you going to be here at the wedding? Well, I'm going to be there at 3:30 when the wedding, I'll be there when the wedding's there. But George would call and say, Pastor, what time are you leaving for the wedding?
Yeah.
And he would go and pick him up.
Yeah.
And it was just that extra touch that meant a lot. And then they would have time to talk and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So those few extra touches,
Yeah.
going just that extra mile to say, hey, what can I do to serve you? I think made a difference for him. And
Good, and it harkens back to what we were talking about earlier about mentoring. Find somebody you can help. Be a mentor yourself. As you climb, lift. Bring somebody else along. Help somebody else. Good, good, good. Well, it's about 3 minutes before. Is it close enough?
Yes.
Can we give instructions?
Thank you, Dr. Huff. Dr. Lance, I see you right back there. Would you like to say a word?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, Dr. Lance is listening. I'm glad you're here. We're gonna have a blessing. I'm gonna ask David Bird if he'd come have a blessing. I have, David Bird's retired and he's still coming to learn. Isn't that something? Thank you, David. I was with him in New Orleans back in October, and I know that, I think we prayed over some beignets, so what we'll do is go through, I think it'll be this door right here, and we'll come right out, and we should be able to eat on that side, so you can leave all your stuff here and have a little more freedom to eat. Got a full hour there if we need that, so looking forward to this coming from the King's Table. One of the desserts that we asked Dr. Huff, hey, Dr. Huff, what would you like for dessert? He said, hey, sure nice to have some pecan pie. So there's 2 different types of desserts, but one of pecan pie is for Dr. Huff, so for sure. So David, you have our blessing, and just feel free to enjoy the fellowship and the food.
Thank you, Brian. This man has been such a blessing to me. I was in Cuba, Alabama for a long, long time. I thought God forgot where he dropped me off over there. A town of 386 people. And but this man has been a big help. And I lost both my in-laws to Alzheimer's and my mother. So I just felt like we need to pray over him.
Amen.
Let's do that. Heavenly Father,
Yes.
thank you so much
Yes.
for Dr. Huff, for the sacrifice that he is making today. I know there's somewhere that he'd rather be than here, where he feels called to be his home. I pray for his sweet wife. Lord, this is it's a hard road to go down as the caregiver. The book 36-Hour Day is so true. These are long days. These are long nights. I just pray for his strength. I pray, Lord, I thank you for his tender heart, the heart of mercy that you've given him. And I know, Lord, you're going to see him through. We thank you that heaven's going to be such a different kind of place, where his sweet bride will be healed and whole forever. And so, Lord, until that time comes, give him what he needs for each and every day. Father, we thank you that we're able to be the saucer that just sort of gets to lap up all that is overflowing in his cup. And we are blessed today to sit at his feet. Father, we pray now that you'll bless the food, you'll use it to nourish and strengthen us. Bless us, Lord, as we continue to serve you. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.